Unless you have been living under a rock, you're probably familiar with the following video that President Trump tweeted out about his nemesis, CNN. Let's take a look at that video. So Donald Trump tweeted that out with the hashtag #FraudNewsCNN and hashtag FNN. And that was actually a clip that we can attribute to Reddit user Han Asshole Solo, who was very excited when he found out that the president was using his work. He took to Reddit to say, "Holy shit, I wake up and have my morning coffee, and who retweets my shit post but the MAGA emperor himself? I am honored." That was on a thread in The Donald, which is a pro-Trump subreddit. And very quickly, people went to go see some of his other work, including Jared Yates Sexton, who is a New York Times contributor and an assistant professor at Georgia Southern University. And he dug up some other memes by this creator. Let's take a look at one of the memes. So there you go. Here's another meme from the guy Trump tweeted. This one showing CNN personalities with Jewish stars. The caption to that is "Something strange about CNN, can't quite put my finger on it." And that's sort of just the beginning. There were other ones that Jared tweeted out. But following this, on Tuesday, Solo took to Reddit to apologize for his earlier posts. He has since taken down that apology and deleted his Reddit account, but we do have some screenshots. In part, his apology reads, "I would also like to apologize for the posts made that were racist, bigoted, and anti-Semitic. I'm in no way this kind of person. I love and accept people of all walks of life. I do not advocate violence against the press. This has been an extreme wake-up call to always consider how others may think or feel about what is being said before clicking the submit button anywhere online that an opinion is allowed." He then added that trolling is nothing more than bullying a wide audience. Now, people on Reddit accused CNN of bullying him or of blackmailing him or threatening to dox him, which is releasing his personal information in order to get this apology. And that was shot down by Andrew Kaczynski, who works for K-File, which is the investigative reporting team for CNN. He tweeted out, "Han Asshole Solo posted his apology before we ever spoke him. He called us afterwards to apologize further, but still, once the internet has a hold of an idea, it went all the way." This led to, on Tuesday, the hashtag CNN blackmail began trending on Twitter, with users sharing other memes of Trump chasing and pummeling CNN. Let's take a look at an example of this. This is, "There will now be more anti-CNN memes than ever before. Thank you at CNN, hashtag CNN blackmail." And this reached sort of a tipping point most recently when Jack Posobiec is a controversial pro-Trump activist whose name I hope I am pronouncing wrong, shared the personal details of multiple CNN employees and talent. Again, he was doxing CNN employees and talent, and that has been confirmed by multiple news outlets that information is correct, but we're not gonna share any of that. This is getting out of hand. I wanna get a reaction from you guys because it seems like there's sort of no end to this. If you call someone out for doxing, then you're gonna get doxed. No one believes this apology. People think that it was just sort of made up to get this to go away. I don't know what to believe here. It feels like an all-out war.
So there's two separate parts of this story, and I'm on different sides of those parts, which I'll get to in a second. Let's first note the fun parts of the story, that we're having serious conversations in this country all over the press about a guy named Han Asshole Solo. That's in every story.
Which incidentally, if you read the Star Wars books, that is his actual middle name.
I was gonna say it's redundant because one of the beloved characteristics of Han Solo is that he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
You don't need to say asshole, he's Han Solo.
See, not fake news.
When it was blanked out on CNN.com, I thought it was Han effing Solo, essentially.
Oh, right. So much better.
It's better off the tongue, but this is Han Asshole Solo. It doesn't sound as good to me.
Yeah.
That's my main gripe with him.
That's a great point. Okay, second of all, let's note that the original Trump tweet where he calls CNN fake and fraudulent is a video that is fake and fraudulent. That's not actually Donald Trump that clotheslines Vince McMahon in the original video. It's a guy in a Trump wig and then they cut and then Trump gets up. So it's totally irrelevant, but just a fun thing that the tape is actually a fraud.
And it's also within wrestling, which even if it was the real Donald Trump, would still be a fake fight.
And it's not actually CNN, it's Vince McMahon that he's co-signing. It's fake in 3 different ways. Okay, just a fun little irony. And then finally, we find out that CNN has an investigative reporting team. That's the most interesting part of the story. Okay, anyway, so now on to the real points. So over the weekend, everybody's going nuts. This is Donald Trump inciting violence against reporters. I don't agree with that. It's just a wrestling thing. Just look, regular Americans watch wrestling, that includes me, and when you equate wrestling with real violence, they go, okay, these guys, they can't take a joke, they hyperventilate over everything, man. They blame Trump for everything when he was just sending out a fun tweet about wrestling. And it feels like the boy who cried wolf, when you don't have to cry wolf, the dude's a wolf, right? He has 1,000 other things that he does wrong. 23 million people are gonna lose their health insurance. We could accidentally go to war with North Korea because he doesn't know what he's doing, and go on and on and on. You don't have to go nuts over this tweet. I mean, we made just such a giant case over it. On the other hand, the doxing and blackmail allegations for CNN. And by the way, I said that in a video, the first part that I put out over the weekend. So I've been clear about that, okay? But this new twist, no. CNN didn't threaten to blackmail the guy. First of all, the guy apparently apologized and took all that stuff off before CNN even had a conversation with him. So it's factually incorrect. That doesn't stop people like Senator Ted Cruz, who's a US senator, from jumping in saying, I think CNN might have done something illegal. So you don't know any of the facts, you're such a blowhard, you're such an annoying, phony politician. Okay, now, but what CNN did do is, they said, look, we know his identity, but we're gonna keep it secret or whatever, unless he does this kind of stuff again. I don't think that that's unreasonable, and so that's an interesting conversation to have. But to say, wait a minute, you're a deeply bigoted, anti-Semitic guy who has put out a lot of different things that we think, whether they're right or wrong, that's targeting us. So if you put out stuff like that again, yeah, of course I reserve the right to tell people who you are. They didn't say, I'm gonna put out his home address so you can go threaten the guy personally. CNN never said that, that's doxing, okay? So you have a First Amendment right to be as anti-Semitic or racist as you wanna be. And by the way, we showed you that one anti-Semitic thing, which is about as anti-Semitic as it gets. He also has tons of stuff against Muslims, but nowadays that's like, you're bigoted against Muslims, that doesn't count. Half the country is, right? He's got bigoted stuff about Mexicans or racist stuff against Mexicans. That doesn't count anymore because half the country's racist against Mexicans, right? But the anti-Semitic stuff counts, and people are like, and he withdrew it. Now, when the right winger that Grace quoted then turns around and actually doxes CNN, puts out the home address of people like Wolf Blitzer, Brian Stelter, puts out their phone numbers, puts out their personal address, that is a threat to their lives. Like, we have a totally unbalanced conversation in this country where one side plays by regular rules and laws and the other side doesn't give a damn. Brian Stelter's life is in danger, Don Lemon's life is in danger. I don't care, is what that guy is saying. Look, I've done 1,000 videos critical of Don Lemon and Wolf Blitzer, but that doesn't mean I would put out their home address for anyone who agrees with me, wink, wink. And it is not the same thing to say, hey, I might expose a troll who his identity, who he is, as opposed to I'm gonna tell you where he lives.
Right, and that's why I think when you get down to it, it's important to find, that seems like a violation of the law to dox someone and disclose their information with malicious intent, or at least it's okay to look into that because it does put someone's life in danger. But I had no desire to find out anything about the person who posted the original meme. Like, I see that, I'm like, all right, you tell me that person's anti-Semitic, sure. I mean, I'm Semitic, and it doesn't really, I mean, it's just strange to see that instinct of CNN. Like, if it was a script about this whole thing and it was an episode of television I was watching and you added like there was a meme that went viral and then you added that the person who made it is anti-Semitic, I'd be like, let's delete that whole plot arc because it's not interesting to me.
Yeah, no, let me agree with Brett completely on that. So yeah, a side part of this is, why is CNN, which apparently has an investigative team, investigating the most irrelevant thing out there? My God, investigate his conflicts of interest and his tax plans and the fact that he doesn't know there's a tax cut inside the healthcare plan. There's so many things to investigate. Instead, they went and somehow unearthed the identity of this. Who cares who made the meme? Does it matter who made the meme? I get that the guy's anti-Semitic and a terrible guy. So as you just heard from me, I don't care about revealing his identity. I care that you don't reveal his private personal information. I think identity is different. Like, oh, what? I just get to be against Jews online, and now you're gonna tell me that I have to put my name on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't put, that part I don't care. But why did you bother? Who cares
It's so
who made
strange.
the meme?
It's so. I hope it was easy, because if it was difficult and they put a lot of like work hours into it, that would be weird.
What's also disheartening to me is that when he issued an apology, so many people were like, "There's no way he could think that what he was posting was a bad idea." That's really disheartening. Is that a lot of the stuff when you go through, maybe we don't care about his identity, but the opinions that he was putting forth on Reddit had an audience. Like, I mean, there's a whole community of people in this subreddit that really agreed with him, that really liked these posts, and that when he issued an apology saying, "Hey, you know what? I got called out, and it's really, I've started questioning some of the work that I put out there. I want to issue an apology. I think that it was cyberbullying or whatever. I don't agree with it. I don't think that it's right, and I want to try and do better." And people are like, "Oh, that's totally. He's got to be blackmailed. He would never think that. He's got to stand by this work that he's put out." I think that's what's sort of sad about the story too.
I like his apology by and large.
Yeah.
I was not expecting like a lengthy, thoughtful apology from
really
someone who's
thoughtful.
like, "Look at all the Jews at CNN." But I don't like in his wording where he's like, "I'm in no way this kind of person." Yeah. You are. You're in every way. These are your actions you're being called out for. You're not really being held accountable for them in any way, because we don't know who you are. But you're being called out for them. You are that kind of person. You are the person, I hate to break it to you, who was like, "You know what? I'm gonna post this meme of all the Jews at CNN." Can we go back to that meme?
Yeah.
I think the most incriminating part of that meme, the one that's from Jared Yates Sexton with it's a bunch of different faces all together.
Yeah, Graphic 7. Yep.
Graphic 7. What's most incriminating is that all he had to do was add the Jewish stars. This is actually a screen cap from a panel on CNN. This whole thing, they had that many people. That's how many folks they have on at the same time. That's a CNN joke, just for that. And also, they have a lot of people. So glad I went out on that limb for that joke.
Okay, so look, last thing on this is that Brett's right again in that, and Grace is too, on the idea that people are rallying to his defense. Like, how dare you, expose the identity of this online troll who said these terrible things? Because apparently they don't think it's that terrible. They think that it's worth it. We've got United States senators jumping into the defense of this horrible guy.
That's what's weird.
Yeah, and Julian Assange, I agree with him on many other things, but now talking about, did CNN break the law by blackmailing? There's no blackmail here, okay? And look at who you're defending. Yeah, they should have never bothered to look into the guy in the first place, but you're telling me that when he says, "I'm in no way this kind of guy," okay, maybe you guys think, racist jokes about Mexicans and killing them at the border, that's hilarious, and a lot of people make those jokes. I'm gonna put that aside, but you don't accidentally slip up and put the Star of David next to all of the reporters on CNN and then go, that was just it's not funny, there's nothing funny about it. It's not an accident, it's not a mistake, it's something you did on purpose because you think the Jews control the media. And this is the guy we're stepping up to defend as an American hero whose identity should never be revealed under any circumstance? I think you should pick new heroes. Support independent media. Come join us at the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.